I feel like I was due for another what if video, though when thinking of a topic I really wasn't sure on what I would cover until I remembered this specific comment. So sure, why not? Without further ado, what if part 1, and let's also include part 2, had stands. Okay, first thing I must go over is that this video's title is practically a lie to a certain stretchable degree, that is. Stands actually did exist long before part 1. Some of you, after hearing that, may have a Darby-like reaction. Don't worry, no need to be confused. When researching, aka going on Reddit, I stumbled upon this. With this post, the user quotes the Jojo wiki stating, 5 centuries ago, around the 1480s, Caravanserai created the sword where the stand Anubis was bound with, and such was its first user. When Sarai died, Anubis did not die with him, but rather, without a user, began to search for users on its own. So yeah, there you go. Stands have been known to exist since the 15th century. One thing that could back this up is the origin of the stand arrows that was elaborated within part 5. So to some of the events, about 50,000 years ago, apparently, a meteorite crashed with an alien virus inside. The virus can enable people to obtain stands, but if they're not worthy enough, they will die. Also take note that some random guy that we don't really get much backstory on, several hundred years ago, by the way, created/crafted the stand arrows from such material. And boom, the rest is history. So okay, endpoint. Stands were possible and even well before part 1 and 2. But if that's the case, then why aren't there any appearances or mentionings of stands at all? The short answer, Araki hadn't finished the idea of stands yet until part 3. And the in-canon answer, well, there probably weren't any stand users. Yeah, I know that sounds really silly, but considering part 1 is simple, short, and its setting is really closed in, this fact isn't too surprising. Well, what about part 2? I failed to mention that at this point. The thing is, Joseph kind of has Hermit Purple during the events of Battle Tendency. Ripple is a life energy that travels through the entire body through a special breathing method. Therefore, a concrete visualization of it would have some sort of wire wrapped around the entire body, like a vine. If Jotaro's group time traveled to the world of part 2, they'd probably be able to see Hermit Purple wrapped around Joseph, just like in part 3. You know, Araki really likes to make these bold statements during interviews, because my initial thought was Joseph got Hermit Purple within part 3 because, you know, Dio used the stand arrow on himself, which, you know, had part of Jonathan's body, which gave all the other Joestars stands. Though, looking back in retrospect, this could possibly explain why he's able to perform, you know, the "your next line is this" gag. Okay, sorry for rambling on, just thought that some background knowledge was necessary. Okay, now we can have a little bit of fun. Let's give stands to certain characters that really don't necessarily make sense, but, you know, we'll stretch out our imaginations for these. First and foremost, let's go over the main character of part 1, Jonathan Joestar. And he actually has, or at least he gets, a stand within part 3 when Dio strikes himself with the arrow. And it's very similar to Hermit Purple. It's sometimes dubbed as Hermit Purple 2 or The Passion. Dio uses the stand mostly in the beginning/middle to find whereabouts of the Joestars. Alright, next, William Zappelli. This one's gonna be a little bit more difficult to put my finger on because I can't really think of anything on top of my head so far. Yeah, I couldn't think of any ideas for William Zappelli's stand, so I asked my Discord. They had a few interesting ideas, but I settled on this one. Why not just give him Hermit Purple? I know that sounds pretty unoriginal considering I also gave Jonathan Hermit Purple, and Joseph technically has it, but Hermit Purple is basically just a physical manifestation of Hamun, so in a sort of sense it adds up. Also keep in mind, I'm going to keyword try to not let these stands completely break the story. Okay, moving on, let's go with Poco. Yeah, remember him, that random kid? Yeah, he really isn't that memorable, but he does have an alternate universe counterpart, Poco Loco, and his stand, Hey Ya, is kind of useless. In layman's terms, all this stand does is give advice and encouraging words to the user. It also may be able to foresee in the future, though that's not completely confirmed. Well, why am I talking about this? I think this stand would really suit him actually even better, because earlier on, or pretty much throughout the entire part of part 1, Poco isn't really much of a confident character. He gets picked on by other kids, very indecisive, all that jazz. Okay, fine, that sounds all nice and fine, but how would that stand playing within the plot? And I think it actually plays rather nicely. There is an extremely key point within Phantom Blood when Poco needs to decide whether to assist Jonathan. If he does, he will risk his life as well. This would be the perfect time for Heya to swoop in, give some good words of encouragement, and from there, basically the events of part 1 would naturally continue as they do. Great, on to the next character, Speedwagon, everybody's favorite Jojo character. He's definitely one of mine. And when coming up with ideas for this video, Speedwagon was one of the first candidates I had a fair amount of ideas for, and one of them was from this scene. 溶かせばいいんだな、その凍った腕をよ。何をする気だ。これならどうだ。スピードワゴン君。Yeah, I know, you just gotta love Speedwagon, he's the best. But I think this could allude to him having a stand, sort of like if you ever watched Fantastic Four, whatever, the Human Torch, that kind of thing. That'd be sort of cool, because it would definitely play in within the story, where he has to melt Zeppeli's hand. But I would not enable him to be able to shoot fireballs or do anything too crazy, because at that rate, things would get a little bit broken within the story. Another thing to keep note of is I want to explain why Speedwagon doesn't really get attacked by Dio. And that reason is going to be because he's basically the Human Torch, and ice moves really aren't going to be able to work on him. And my last character suggestion for a stand would be Dio, but it's kind of a little bit difficult. The obvious conclusion would be, okay, let's just give him the world, but that would be too broken for the story. Then afterwards, I was like, okay, let's give him scary monsters, sort of like what happened to Diego. But then when I really broke it down, they're very similar. Dio can create zombies to be henchmen for him. Diego can create dinosaurs to work for him. Okay, hold up, took a little bit of a break from recording and scripting and all that jazz. Wanted to think this over, and I have a new idea. We could probably still give Dio the world, but a huge caveat is going to go into place. It's going to be extremely nerfed. Instead, let's give him about 1 to 2 seconds max to stop time for. And this would really be able to transfer quite smoothly into part 3. Dio from that point can train up his stand, develop it even more to enable himself to stop time for even longer. And nerfing it to 1 to 2 seconds, I think is justified, because that will give him just barely enough time to dodge attacks and all that stuff, but it will not break the story and make him OP compared to all the other characters. Alright, onto a few part 2 characters real quick. Lisa, really cool character. And this kind of reminds me of part 4, that girl that Koichi was dating. I forget her name, but she had that stand where her hair would basically move and all that jazz. Lisa kind of does a similar thing with her scarves, but I kind of want to use that as sort of a telekinetic thing where she could move specific items. Caesar, I mentioned this within my What If Caesar Was in Part 3 video. He could use basically water bending, avatar style. He can even heal the team occasionally and all that good stuff. In addition, I'll even enable him like I did in my other video where he could fly, but in this case, he really wouldn't want to separate from the group too much. And the way he would fly is using all that water pressure shooting downwards to levitate himself. Also, just a side note, just want to get this cleared up, but one of my commenters wanted to see a stand stat list for Caesar stand when I made that video, and I usually don't even take stand stats into consideration because most of the time, especially part 3, they're very bogus. Most of the time, these stats don't really show off the stand whatsoever. It's usually, a stand is usually defined by its core abilities, not its stats. But just to be a nice guy, I'll throw in a stand stat list right here, real quick. Nothing too crazy, obviously. And the last character from part 2 that I really want to discuss is Cars and pretty much all the other Pillar Men, but specifically Cars. I don't think they really need stands. I think they're already, especially Ultimate Cars, is already broken within their own regards, and they can pretty much fight against most of these stands. But yeah, those are my thoughts and opinions and speculation and all that jazz. If you guys want to throw anything else into the conversation, feel free to in the comments down below. Do you guys think I did a justifiable job explaining all this? To be honest, I feel like there's so much more to discuss within this topic, but I feel like if I went on and on, the video would have been really long. And the point of this video was just to get a few interesting ideas out and, you know, waste time explaining the background origin of the stand arrow. Yeah, sorry about that again. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. 100% appreciated. If you guys enjoyed the content, feel free to subscribe, smash that like button, you know the good stuff. And in addition, go down below and check out my Twitch. I stream pretty much every other day, and also I have my art Instagram down below as well. I promise I'll post my artwork soon. It's just at the moment, I want to improve my skills before I show off anything. Okay, enough of my rambling. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.